everyone, and welcome back to What a Barb, a Polin podcast. I'm Oz, and this week I'm joined by Lecky, Beans and Veg again, as we finally get back to our Polin rewatch of season 2. How are you all doing?
Pretty good.
Just grand.
I'm doing pretty good. I got a lot of endorphins just flowing through my system right now.
Have you been on a workout?
Yeah, just did a workout.
Also, shout out to our one listener who said that she does work out while listening to our podcast.
I thought you were just going to say, shout out to our one listener. You really keep us going.
I'm the one listener of the podcast.
Who was Beans? It was Beans who was working out.
What about you, Ovs? How you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Beans. I'm very tired. And if my audio is a bit echoey this episode, I'm not in a cave. I'm just in an Airbnb, and, you know, sometimes them's the breaks, isn't it? Apologies, everyone. Having a very nice time. I am, unlike Colin, in Albania. Beautiful. Highly recommend. Would recommend to a friend or a podcast colleague.
I'm gonna be honest, never even had Albania on my travel list, but seeing all of the photos.
She's a beauty. She's a beauty.
She's beauty and she's grace. She's Albania. Was Congeniality, anyone?
Yeah, no, I know it.
Before we grab our stale bread and head over to the lake to feed the ducks, Lecky, take us through the breaking crumbs of the week. So, Lecky, what have you got for us this week?
Hello, Barbkin. What a week. There is a lot that's happened, and it's left us all feeling pretty discombobulated. So let's get into it.
Let's.
So in last week's Crumbs, we shared the breaking news that Adjoa Ando had seemingly confirmed that Season 3 wouldn't be released until next year. A few days after her comments to Digital Spy, Adjoa reiterated her comments while speaking to Hello Magazine at the Pride of Britain Awards. When asked about the love story between Colin and Penelope, Adjoa said, "It's very gratifying because we've held our breath for a long time. Because of the way the years panned out, the season's going to come out next year, and the anticipation is going to grow and grow," adding that, "I think people will feel very satisfied." Adjoa also confirmed fans could expect more intrigue, more romance, more fabulous outfits, locations, and a bit of How's Your Father?
The euphemism for sex if you're not English.
Adding that we're going to have some Colin and Penelope, we're going to have some Lady Whistledown action, we're going to have some pushing and pulling from Lady Danbury. Speaking to Metro at the same event, Adjoa discussed the impact of the show across the world and the joy it brings viewers.
Joy, yeah, that's some word for it, Lecky. One of the many emotions I often feel is joy.
I mean, its presence brings joy, its absence brings great pain and confusion. But excitingly for Polin fans, Adjoa said that Penelope has been the wallflower for 2 seasons, and it's time for Penelope to have some time in the sun, and she's getting that moment now. So that will be the main thing, Penelope and Colin, and yeah, it's nice for good people to have nice things happen to them. So out of the shadows into the sunlight for Pen.
Oh, didn't that just make your heart sore?
Yes. Although we still have not heard official confirmation from Shondaland or Netflix regarding a 2024 release date, all the signs are certainly pointing in that direction, as this week it was announced that The Crown will be releasing in 2 parts, and the second portion of this series will be released on the 14th of December. If the latter date sounds familiar, you might remember that December 14th was the Bridgerton Season 3 release date that was accidentally leaked by Netflix Portugal during To Doom.
Happy memories.
But we don't know for certain, but it does appear that Netflix are spreading out their content in light of the strikes, hence why The Crown has been broken up over the final quarter of the year, and probably why Season 3 will be releasing in 2024. To add to our release date woes, 2 members of the Polin subreddit have shared an update regarding the release of the TV tie-in edition of Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. If you recall, the book appeared to be marked for an unspecified December release date, which would have tied in with the original leak date for Season 3, but booksellers have been getting in touch with those who placed pre-orders and have confirmed that the publication date has now been pushed back to May 2nd, 2024. Insert screaming from all Polin fans here. Again, we can't say for certain what this means for Season 3, but this does indicate a late April, early May release date if previous TV tie-in book publications are anything to go by. Obviously, this has sent us all spiraling. Thanks to Adjoa's comments, we'd started to accept 2024 was on the cards, but I think everyone has found the possibility of May to be a bit of a shock. Although this is undoubtedly disappointing to hear, I'd like to take this moment to try and look on the bright side, even just a little bit. During April, we traditionally celebrate Polin Week, and 2024 is particularly significant because April and May will be the 200th anniversary of several events that occur in Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, including their wedding.
Okay, that is sweet. Now, it could, and this is pure speculation on our part, please don't take this as anything, but if they're cutting up The Crown into 2 parts, potentially they could do the same with Season 3 if they need to spread content. What do you think?
Maybe.
I think there's a very natural cutting off point if Colin does find out about Lady Whistledown in episode 4.
So there is kind of a natural break there. But if you think about the other series that have been broken up like this on Netflix, we have The Crown, which are kind of have like standalone episodes. So breaking it up isn't that big of a deal. It will be interesting to see if they do it with any other normal series.
Everyone will hate me, and I'm sorry. I've long been an advocate of either split release or weekly release. I think it'd be so much fun.
I don't really mind waiting.
Oh, do you not? Oh, well, I've got good news for you, Lucky.
I told you delayed gratification is, I'm pretty good with waiting. At this point, like, I'm just so used to waiting, I don't even care. But I was going to say, if they do break it off, then episode 5 would be the first episode of the second part, and they can get started with a bang and a carriage.
Always a bright side to be found, Polin fans.
So we will, of course, link the Reddit post in our show notes, and we're extremely grateful for the fans who shared this information with everyone. We salute you.
Truly the bravest.
Also attending the Pride of Britain Awards was Ruby Barker. Both Adjoa and Ruby have been featured in Breaking Through, a special one-off panel celebrating Black British actors in the TV industry. The program is available for UK viewers to stream on ITVX. In Nicola news, Nicola will be narrating the audiobook for Sense and Sensibility, which is so exciting.
Yeah.
Speaking of audiobooks, Penguin Random House have also submitted Nicola's narration of The Shadow Cabinet for Grammy consideration in the Best Audiobook Narration and Storytelling Recording category. So we wish them all the very best of luck.
Absolutely.
Speaking of Nicola, it has been confirmed that Big Mood will be coming soon to Channel 4 in the UK. We'll, of course, keep you updated once release date is confirmed. And fans of Lord Fife, you'll be pleased to know that Britt Seymour will be starring in Masters of the Air, a new Apple TV show based on the true story of American airmen in World War II. The show will premiere January 26th. And Britt will also be appearing as Tom Parker Bowles in Season 6 of The Crown. So although we won't be getting any Bridgerton on December 14th, you can at least catch up with Lord Fife, albeit as a completely different character on that date. So let's show him some support.
What else is going on, Leck?
Julie Quinn has donated a signed copy of the Bridgerton Clue Game to Fall Into Romance, a charity auction raising funds for Audio in Color, a nonprofit that helps authors of color create their first self-published audiobooks. You can bid on the game now, and it's a wonderful cause, so we'll include the link in our show notes. And Joe Barnes' Starstruck is now available to stream in the US on Max. Again, this is our beloved Lord Wilding that we have yet to meet.
Fan favourite character, never appeared a second on screen.
Love his name. Love him. Yeah, I just know already. But in strike news, we have some very disappointing news regarding the SAG-AFTRA strike. Following a week or so of negotiations, talks have broken down as the AMPTP and industry CEOs walked away from the negotiating table after refusing to counter SAG-AFTRA's latest offer. SAG-AFTRA released a statement after Wednesday's talks, revealing that the union had negotiated in good faith, despite the fact that last week the AMPTP presented an offer that was shockingly worth less than they proposed before the strike began. The studios are continuing to refuse to protect performers from AI concerns, increase wages in line with inflation, and share revenue via a fair revenue share proposal. Instead, SAG-AFTRA said the AMPTP are using bully tactics and have intentionally misrepresented figures relating to the revenue share proposal. The union concluded that our resolve is unwavering and encouraged members and supporters to join picket lines and solidarity events around the country. And just a little rant here. Obviously, this is gross behavior from the AMPTP, who've not only inflated the numbers, but their decision to suspend talks rather than SAG seems like a really infuriating tactic that they're using to turn the general public and other entertainment workers who are suffering against the actors. Not to mention, this tactic seems designed to push the actors to the point where they are hurting enough that they'll accept any proposal that is offered. Luckily, I think the general public has seen from the AMPTP's past behavior with the WGA during their talks that they can be conniving and manipulative like this in the press. Just a reminder that they hired a crisis PR firm to help them spin the narrative of the strike several months ago after similar efforts like this failed. So here's hoping the public and fellow entertainment workers stick by SAG and put pressure on the AMPTP until they cave. And honestly, who cares if SAG did ask for more than the directors or the writers did? For one, the DGA didn't even fight for better terms. They did not vote to strike. SAG workers have different needs, and any improvements that SAG makes will likely help other unions, including the WGA, the DGA, and IATSE, gain better terms during their next negotiations. At any rate, our thoughts are with SAG and their fight for a better future. If you would like to help them in the present, however, along with other entertainment workers who are struggling during this time, donations continue to be one of the best ways we can show support. So if you are able to, we would once again encourage you to make a donation to funds such as the Entertainment Community Fund, which will help support strikers and affected workers at this incredibly challenging time. All resources will be linked in our show notes or via our strike highlights on Instagram. For some positive strike news, WGA members have ratified their new 3-year deal with the AMPTP, officially bringing the writer's strike to an end. And just to take our usual walk down memory lane, it has been 1 year since the Hannah New casting announcement. Fans might remember that it was announced that Hannah would be playing the mysterious Lady Tilly Arnold, described as a firebrand widow who has widowed at an early age. The press release confirms that the character enjoys the privileges and power that comes with being at the helm of her former husband's estate, living life on her own terms with financial independence and sexual freedom.
Now this is a good memory.
If you were in the fandom at the time, you might remember that this piece of casting news sent everyone spiraling as people began to panic, with zero basis, of course, that Lady Tilly could have something to do with Colin. We believe it's pretty unlikely, and many now suspect that Lady Tilly will play a role possibly in Benedict's, Eloise's, or even Francesca's storylines, or maybe even as some kind of antagonist. Who knows?
Did that kind of logic stop us from hurtling straight forward into chaos? No, it did not. Of course it did not.
Hilariously, a few days before the casting announcement had been made, the actress was spotted on set during the Rest Park filming leaks, but the quality was so bad that we thought the character was some kind of headless ghost.
Honestly, it genuinely did not look like a real person, I can tell you that.
We'll share the picture. Instead, it turned out to be the very lovely Hannah New. We have many happy stories of blurry filming links leading us to wrong conclusions, but the appearance of the headless ghost is a particularly fond memory of mine.
Happy times. Just to say, we do know that it's been a disappointing week for Bridgerton fans, especially at the potential prospect of us having to wait until April or May. I think we all kind of anticipated that a delay was coming, but I think this is maybe a bit later than anyone really thought. But just as a reminder, we're in it together, we have been for a long time, we can have fun along the way, we're going to keep going. Due to how we record our episodes, if you can tell, we record crumbs later on and our main episodes often get filmed quite far in advance, so we haven't actually been able to address this issue as a group on the podcast, but we just want to share our thoughts here, and I think Veg just wanted to add a quick message which we will insert here.
Hi everyone, Veg here. We talked before about how Polin did give spring vibes, and that's sort of what I'm clinging to at the moment. I think obviously it's disappointing, but we've got such an opportunity now for like a proper full-on promotion period. I know the strike's still not over, but I just honestly can't wait for the cast to get their time to shine and building the excitement even more, so I'm looking forward to it.
We just need to keep going, keep laughing, and we will get there. But until that day, Lecky, shall we get on with our episode?
Yes.
Thank you, Lecky. Last week we took a mid-season break to recover from 204 and to tackle some questions we were asked by our lovely listeners. In today's episode, we'll be breaking down everything Pen and Colin from Season 2, Episode 5, An Unthinkable Fate. It's a pretty stressful episode for the main plot drama, but for our beloved Polin, it's pretty smooth sailing. Although, I'm saying that now, and I watched it, and Pen gets quite stressed, doesn't she, bless her? Colin's having a great time, that's what we care about.
Not a great time. I wouldn't say great.
He's munching biscuits, and that's the entire episode for him.
He's having his crisis. I don't know, he's kind of lost.
He's always having a crisis. Like, you know, come on.
He's always, like, on the moody scale, he's about like a 3 out of 10.
He's, like, slightly peppier. He's doing all right. He gets to feed some ducks. And, you know, a quieter episode means an easy job for us. And we're about to enter in the second half of the season, which, bar the last 15 seconds of the season, is pure Polin joy.
Yes.
We fans, did you like?
Oh, I noticed some details that I hadn't noticed before during this rewatch, so I'm kind of excited to talk about that.
Heck yeah, because I didn't notice them.
Right then, Lady Veg, can you do us the honours and give us our episode summary?
I'm shy again, okay.
You've been through this, you can't keep getting shy.
Dearest gentle listener, the Queen enthusiastically supports Anthony and Edwina's engagement and offers to host the nuptials. But the couple's future marital bliss is thrown into disarray by the chaotic return of the elder Sheffields. A trip to the pond leaves Anthony, and perhaps others, soaking wet. Eloise Bridgerton takes increasing risks to further her feminist education and flirting opportunities, while Penelope grows more concerned for her friend. Anthony tells Kate she is the object of all his desires, and she decides the best response is to wingwoman her little sis. Portia Featherington schemes with cousin Jack Harrington to scam the Ton and save their financial situation. And Colin Bridgerton cannot even tell the difference between a duck and a swan. What a silly little man.
You can't keep insulting Colin in the episode summary.
I didn't call him a boy.
Editor's note, because I forgot to mention, Anthony Head, who plays Lord Sheffield in this, was also in Merlin as iconic villain and all-round Delph, Uther Pendragon. back to the show.
An editor's note to the editor's note. For my fellow Buffy fans, Anthony Stewart Head's superior role was clearly Giles in Buffy. Giles forever. Thank you for your time.
A note to the editor's note to the editor's note. You're both clearly wrong. Anthony Head's superior performance was obviously as the head teacher in Doctor Who School Reunion, whose character name was actually Mr. Finch, now I think about it. Not that Mr. Finch, but doesn't it just prove that everything does in a way come back to Cheeseman? Thank you for that illuminating summary, Lady Veg. But shall we get started?
Okay, so this episode, welcome to Cake Watch, or cake and other assorted sugary snacks. We've got both Colin and the delightful Ton jeweler, Mr. Brooks, snacking this episode. So for my fellow Polin fans who like to snack, we'll be tracking these two very closely this episode, never fear.
Colin, eating is, as we all know, a very important topic to the fandom, and we take our duties very seriously in tracking exactly what biscuits and cake he eats, so don't worry. And as a reminder, I think we mentioned it before, but Colin definitely eats more in season 2. God, what a conversation. Colin definitely eats more in season 2 than he does in season 1, because after the release of season 1, Luke Newton got some feedback that fans wanted to see Colin have his famous appetite from the books, and Luke Newton took that to heart and courageously endeavoured in every episode he possibly could to get Colin eating as much as he possibly could manage.
Also, what a way to really hone in. You are having a mental decline. Because listen, every time I'm like, damn, I'm not feeling great. Let me eat an entire wardrobe of food. That I feel like I identify with him so much. He's like, I'm not doing well mentally, but the cake is really helping my spirits. Same way. Same.
You have to find your joy where you can. Luke Newton would speak to the set designers on the show and ask that they make sure that Colin's plate was particularly filled high with snacks. So if you notice him eating more, his plate being fuller, it's all thanks to Luke Newton.
This episode opens with more fantasies, which we love to see and desperately hope will appear in season 3. And speaking of Colin and his voracious appetite, I also have an appetite for Regency hand-holding, so I can't not mention the following scene that occurs between Kate and Anthony here. Cantonese famous little hand graze. I don't think they actually even graze. What would you call that? Like,
it's like a little, I'm demonstrating, the little fingers.
Yeah, it's like a drive-by hand tease. But anyway, for fans of period dramas, you may have noticed that this little moment seems like a possible tribute to a similar scene in the 2005 Pride and Prejudice movie. Anthony does a little hand flex here after being in close quarters with Kate Sharma's hand, and we'll see another big tribute to the BBC Pride and Prejudice adaptation later this episode. But here's a question for you. Do you think we will see any references to other famous period dramas or movies or something else in season 3?
Absolutely. Probably, because they're going to do a huge, like, romantic comedy tilt, so they could do all kinds of things. Like, they could do, She's All That, they could reference.
As long as it's not Jane Eyre.
Oh, damn, I love Jane Eyre.
God, with Colin having a wife in the attic.
Jane Eyre is the most depressing.
Obs likes Jane Eyre.
It's also my favourite book.
But it's not a good ending, is it, Obs?
It's her favorite.
Jane Eyre is my favorite book.
It is my favourite book.
It's my favorite book too.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. I don't think Jane Eyre is Polin coded though. I don't think that they're gonna do anything from Polin.
Why could bloody not be? Can you imagine?
She walks in and the Bridgerton house is on fire and she's like, "Sir, your room is on fire."
Yeah, let's not have Jane Eyre. One of our listeners who submitted a question for our last episode, they said that they think the plot is very like She's All That. What are we thinking? I've not seen She's All That.
It's a My Fair Lady Pygmalion.
Oh,
yeah, kind of. Yeah, basically it's like the popular guys at the beginning of the movie, they make a bet with Freddie Prinze Jr. to take the ugliest girl in school and make her popular. And then they obviously pick the least ugliest girl who just is a little bit quirky and wears glasses.
Yeah.
He like teaches her how to be more popular. She gets a social life. It kind of backfires on her when she figures out that she's a bet, and she has this iconic line where she goes, "Am I a bet? Am I a fucking bet?" And then they fall in love after and go to prom.
It's like Pygmalion and My Fair Lady, I would say.
Yeah.
They redo the same storyline in Not Another Teen Movie with Chris Evans, and it's hilarious. Highly recommend it. But I bet this listener recommended this one movie because there's this scene where the male protagonist watches the love interest walking down the stairs in like this gorgeous gown.
I want that.
Yes, please.
I do want that.
So I'm guessing they want that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also an iconic like dance moment in She's All That too, like in the prom. I feel like like Penn walking down the stairs and then her and Colin have this like crazy, amazing, magical dance would literally make me shit myself. So I'd love that.
Do you remember that Nicola shared that clip from, is it Pretty in Pink?
Yeah.
Really early on into filming.
Pretty in Pink would be fun too.
It was the scene where Ducky goes into the shop and
Yep.
tries to get the girl's
Try
attention
a
by
little
acting like a fool.
tenderness.
And I remember at the time it was super controversial because some people really thought that Nick was hinting at the show, and other people like, no, she's just referencing a random movie.
It kind of makes sense. So here's a little fun lore because I love this movie. But originally, Ducky and What's-Her-Face were supposed to get together. The audience hated it so much, they changed the ending so that she got with like the hotter guy. So if this was like a Pretty in Pink thing, it would be like Ducky and
Molly Ringwald.
got together.
That's so funny because Pygmalion and all the Pygmalion, that always changes the ending.
Yeah.
It always goes backwards and forwards, whether they stick to the original ending or not. And Polin is very, very classical myth Pygmalion coded in general. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because season 2 was very Pride and Prejudice coded.
Yes.
Yeah.
Season 3, all we've been told is rom-com. And we don't know like what era of rom-coms. He kind of has like a 90s vibe going on though.
Yeah.
Kind of in his styling.
And judging from the season 3 synopsis, we get some Pygmalion, My Fair Lady, and Emma vibes. Of those options, I think Emma is the one I'd most like to see referenced. I've said many times before that season 3 is Clueless, but Colin is Cher because of the whole matchmaking plot. But I don't know if they can work in a tribute to the scene with the fountain where Cher realizes her feelings without it being like super ridiculous.
It can be as ridiculous as it likes. I want it.
But there are also some great moments from the 1996 and 2020 adaptations of Emma that could be cute. In the 2020 version, we have that great scene where Mr. Knightley is so overcome that he rushes home and basically tears off his clothes.
Would like that.
That could be amusing.
I love that adaptation. So good.
Yeah, it's
A
good.
stressed out Regency boy who takes it out by just ripping his cravat off. Sound familiar?
I also have a soft spot for Mr. Knightley's love confessions in both of those adaptations. They take place outdoors, which could provide a really stunning and romantic backdrop. And both Mr. Knightleys are completely losing their mind at the thought that their love interest only views them as a friend. They can mine some comedy from that. And in the 1996 version, they have this really touching, poignant proposal that I just love, where Mr. Knightley just softly declares, "Marry me, my wonderful, darling friend." And I can only imagine that other Polin fans, including me, expiring on the spot if we heard anything similar coming out of Colin's mouth.
And Penn will turn around and go, absolutely fucking not, I will not.
Yay!
I'm gonna go feral babes.
But speaking of Polin, where are they this episode? If we pop over to Grosvenor Square, we can find Penn walking through the square itself, arm in arm with her bestie Eloise. They pass by Prudence, who's busy discussing her engagement to the other young ladies of the ton, and it's a classic Penn and Elle scene. Elle's shying away, Penn smiling as she listens on in.
Last episode, we mentioned that the color pink in Penelope's wardrobe symbolizes her independence, and there are little hints of pink throughout this look in the embellishments on her dress and with her gloves. Penn also notes that Mama has rather forgotten I exist. Penn is making more of her own choices where her wardrobe is concerned this episode.
Yep, Portia is now fully preoccupied with Prudence's engagement to Jack, just like she was busy with Philippa earlier on in the season. So Penn has a little bit more free reign. Small steps, Penn.
Yeah, it's a cute outfit. The yellow is just, for me, veering a little far into the green. We love green, but greeny yellow,
She's with Elle though. Elle's wearing her mint green. They're kind of...
Sure.
I think she looks super cute in all of her outfits this episode, so I do disagree with you. She's adorable.
She looks cute. Her hair's pulled back quite tightly. You know, where's this loosey-goosey we've been teeing up? But she does have little cute gloves, so I'll allow it.
I'll allow it.
And Penn mentions that cousin Jack has ensured their family's future and confesses that she's pretty happy about it too. As we said earlier on in season 2, Penn was weighed down by deciding whether to help her family or not, and she seemed really happy that Jack was going to swoop in and solve everything, which is slightly unfortunate.
Yeah, it's sad how aware she is of the family's financial troubles, though at times like this, I do remember the stash of money she has hidden away under the floorboards. She'll be alright.
Cute. She'll look after herself.
Yeah.
The two besties laugh together at Prudence and walk off arm in arm, followed by their maids. Oh, keep an eye out there. We'll be returning to those maids later. And it's very lovely, very classic, very season 1 Penn Louise scene. Fear not though, if you're feeling too attached, because those cracks in friendship will begin to show themselves soon enough.
Do. Production crumbs. So Grosvenor's how do you pronounce it?
Grosvenor.
Grosvenor Square.
Grosvenor.
Grosvenor?
Grosvenor.
Grosvenor.
No, it's Grosvenor. They're Britishing it. It's fine. You're good.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, I'm just saying she can't go Grosvenor. Like, she's American.
Okay.
You call them fucking graham crackers. Like, let's not get started on this thread because you will not win.
How do you pronounce graham
Like
crackers?
Graham. Graham.
Like Graham Norton.
Yeah.
Yeah, Graham. Would you call him Graham Norton?
We do, yeah.
Pish, posh, oshkosh, bagosh with this bullshit. Okay.
Anyway.
Sorry.
Do. So Grosvenor Square is usually filmed right in front of Ranger's house, and that's where they filmed the front of the Bridgerton house. So typically what they do is there's a huge patch of land, and we'll put a picture of it on social media, obviously, and they set up a little area, and that's basically what they call Grosvenor Square. Yeah, it's just a really simple, like, flowery layout that they do, and that's how they get it.
Unsurprisingly, it'll be appearing in season 3.
Yep.
So we found the P in the Polin. Where is the Olin?
Well, Colin is over with his family in the Bridgerton drawing room, doing what Colin does best, snacking and being snarky to his siblings. He says, of Edwina, may the Lord help her, and rather dramatically rolls his eyes as he listens to Anthony be, well, Anthony.
And my attention is called to Colin's cheeks in this scene, more specifically how full they are, as he munches on cake watch. Cake.
Okay. He's like crammed it in. He's
Yeah. But he is in blue again with a cravat, even when he's spending casual time with his family and his fruit and cake. Buddy, is this necessary?
You never know when you might need to be a gentleman though, Veg.
Yeah, but your neck needs chewing space. Like, you know.
I think Penn's just been over. I think Penn's just been there. Because they were walking from Penn's house over to...
Are you saying that Colin thought he needed to maintain propriety around Ben?
Yeah, good point, well made. Thank you, Lucky. I think it just does stress me out how they have to sort of be at least a bit smart all the time. Like, I'm a leggings and no bra gal. Yet another reason why I would not make it in the 19th century.
Titties flopping. That's the lifestyle I enjoy.
Yeah.
Free the neck.
Free the boobs.
Viewers might also have noticed a similarity between Colin and Gregory's outfits in this scene. He's relaxing at home, he's with his mama and his family, so I guess we could forgive it this time. But looking forward to less of that in Series 3.
Also here, the prophet Hyacinth Bridgerton asks, what about Miss Edwina's sister? Asking if Kate will move in with the newlyweds. Again, she makes a similar remark about the Duke in Season 1, so it'll be interesting to see if we go 3 for 3 in Season 3.
Oh, I bet they will.
I hope so.
Little shitstar. What do you think she'd say though?
I don't know.
She'd be like, ooh, pens.
I've got it. What of Colin?
Yeah, they're like in depth discussing like the possible candidates for the husband.
Or she'd be like, oh, do you think that Pen's going to move in with Devling soon? And then Colin's going to be like, fuck no.
The blood drops from his face.
Yeah.
The biscuit leaves his hand.
Not if I have anything to say about it. I don't know.
He's what?
Luke Newton, is that you? Are you on the call?
Anyway, something I picked up on during this rewatch is that Violet also mentions that there is an engagement ball scheduled for the next week. She tries to wrangle Eloise into helping her plan it, and we never actually see this engagement ball or see one in Season 1, so fingers crossed Polin's engagement ball will be the first one we glimpse on camera.
I mean, it's rather important in the books. Do you think we get it?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I think so, but we want it to be slightly different behaviour by Colin.
Yeah, we wanted to play out differently and have kind of a different tone to it. But the fact that we haven't seen one yet, but they've, mentioned that they exist in Season 2, I mean, there's a potential that we could see one. And we, all our listeners know that we want to see like an engagement dinner, but an engagement ball would be great too.
Yeah, it's a good stage for the drama of Lady Whistledown.
Yeah.
Yes.
And speaking from like Crumbs production stuff, which I promise we will maybe hopefully sometime do.
We're getting there.
Do another Crumbs thing. We do know that they filmed a lot of balls this season.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's entirely possible that we could get an engagement ball for, if not one, maybe another sibling.
Fran and John. That's a good point.
Maybe.
Oh yeah, of course. They're not going to be the only ones. Maybe combine it.
Yeah.
Combine it. Just because, as a reminder, Season 2 was impacted by COVID, so they had to pull back on the balls and dances.
Yeah.
Whereas Season 3, it sounds like they're really going to go for it.
Right.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed for the drama. I want it to all go wrong at the engagement. Sorry, Polin. Eloise mentions that she's going to a lecture on flower arranging. Is that planned dinner here on the horizon? With Penelope later on. We sadly don't see Colin's reaction to this news, but we know that he paid attention because he brings it up to Pen later.
Yeah.
Nothing gets past Colin when it comes to Penelope, except for, you know, the secret identity and the undying love that she has for him. He's very aware of these things. But remember, Colin is showing interest in Elle's affairs as he's been very suspicious of her for the last couple of episodes.
I'm just thinking about the book itself and how much he started to pay attention to Pen for like everything. And it's like he's so observant of Elle, but he's just gonna like really hone in on Pen, but still have no fucking clue how she feels.
Yeah, I feel like in season 1 and season 2, he's like all over the place, but in season 3, he's going to be focused in on Pen, and I think the Lady Whistledown stuff is not going to slip past him, but we'll see.
Focused, but still completely blindsided.
Bless his little heart. And in all honesty, Colin doesn't really do much else in this scene, but we appreciate it nonetheless. He's having a great time with the snacks, having a great time smirking, laughing at everyone, making jabs at each other. We love to see it. And, you know, we were a little worried about how he was doing at the end of last episode. He definitely wasn't in the best headspace, so it's nice to see him a bit perkier. Has he really managed to move past everything now and look forward to the future as he said he would? We can only hope. Over at the Medice, the Featheringtons have arrived to pick out Prudence's trousseau. And is Pen there?
She is. She's adopted a very sneaky little stance, which is very cute.
Yeah, she's in the corner looking a little bit too suspicious, and she quickly darts over to Madame Delacroix, to ask if her maid has been able to deliver a dress that needs altering. We know what you're up to, Pen. And Jen replies in French and then drops to her Cockney London. I mean, that's very bold of you. It's a busy shop, Jen.
Yeah.
You're playing a bit fast and loose there. But it shows that at some point in the last few episodes, Jen indeed revealed that part of her identity to Pen. And Jen mentions it's been a busy week, and Pen replies that the ton of ravenous gossip about the wedding. And ever the businesswoman, Jen presses her a little bit to make sure that she gets her business represented in Lady Whistledown. You know, a business partnership goes both ways, Pen, and don't you go forgetting it.
I just love this little interaction. Pen looks so pleased to have someone that she can talk shop with, and Genevieve is so encouraging. That being said, love the girl power here, but some alarm bells do go off at Jen's final words to Pen, considering that reckless streak we've seen from her, especially last episode. Genevieve says, but why should there be limits to a woman's ambitions? I think you, of all people, would understand there's always more to be achieved.
Yeah, this definitely ties into what we've said with season 2, where Pen just starts to get a little bit too ahead of herself. She gets a bit too risky, a bit too confident, and dare I say, a little bit slightly too controlling when it comes to Eloise and how she's interacting with Theo and Lady Whistledown. And all I'll say is, have you ever heard of a guy named Icarus, Pen? You've learned a few lessons there, my love.
Meanwhile, Kate returns to the Danbury residence and finds Antony waiting with her favorite cake-loving jeweler. This scene and this character is one of the reasons I just love this show so much. I love imagining one of the Bridgerton writers thinking, I need to find a way to keep Kate and Antony in the same room post-engagement. And they were like, I have it, a jeweler who really loves cake. For Cantony fans, this scene is also super underappreciated. I love the close-up we get of Johnny Bailey here as Antony is arguing with Kate because Johnny Bailey lets Antony's eyes drift to Kate's lips twice, and it's just chef's kiss.
We'll take something like that for season 3, thank you.
And also just as a mild tangent, and for anyone else who has mild claustrophobia, the idea of getting a ring stuck on my finger like this is something I just dread.
Oh, same.
Do you think Colin's going to give a ring to Pen? Hotly debated. What stone do you think it'll be?
You know what? In Fix, a lot of the time it's like emerald or whatever, and they could do like the emerald of the season thing. But
I want it to be yellow topaz.
Yeah, that's the other one he always goes for. And then someone tries to stop him. It's usually like Elle's like, she fucking hates yellow. Get it in your head.
I think green. Green is their color. Let's go for an emerald. That'd be my choice.
Look, he hasn't got the funds, so he's just going to have to take whatever gumball machine ring he can find.
Hey, you guys are Taylor Swift fans. They could do a paper ring made out of an issue of Lady Whistledown.
We're gonna leave Lady Danbury's because we've got somewhere to get to. Where are we off, Leck?
What the duckins is going on here? Well, it's time for a promenade, and it seems like the entire town has turned out for the affair, along with several waterfowl. We'll wade into that pond a little deeper, but for now, let's pop over to Violet, Edwina, and Antony. So in this sequence, Violet asks Edwina her favorite colors so that she can incorporate them into the engagement ball that I mentioned previously, and this just made me wonder, what do you think Pen's answer would be? In the book, Pen's favorite color is green, which happens to be the same color as Colin's eyes. In the show, Colin has blue eyes, and she so desperately wants to belong to a family like the Bridgertons, and I wouldn't be surprised if blue was her answer.
Oh, that's super cute. Book Pen liked sage green, didn't she? And that's definitely like the colour palette we've seen in like Market Pen, Enchanted Pen.
Yeah, we've definitely seen some like seafoam greens, like on the verge of almost being blue, but really sticking to a like blue-green palette. So
I wonder if they're just not showing us any of the Bridgerton blue stuff because that's where she transitions to at the end of the season.
We have a flurry photo of Blue Pen.
Yeah.
No one can convince me otherwise.
The Rest Park?
She does wear Bridgerton blue at one point.
Yes.
Rest
Yeah.
Park, and she's standing with Devlin.
I really do feel like it would be a missed opportunity to at least put Nicola in some really dark emerald greens. She would look fucking fabulous on that.
She has to.
Yeah.
Vegetable.
Yeah.
We saw bits of the wedding being filmed.
Yes.
You know, this is all about, you know, wedding prep, engagement prep, what Pen would choose. What did we see at the wedding?
A lot of flowers, blue flowers, and yellow.
And yellow.
Yes, I don't know if this is a bit naughty, but I did at one point walk past a large plastic crate in which there were yellow and blue petals.
Oh, there can be petals on the ground.
So to contextualise, Veg and I lived closely to where a wedding, we don't know whose wedding, but probably Polin's, was filmed, and we were able to sneak a few peeks as they were setting up and as they were filming, and it did look very, very, very blue.
And yellow.
I'd say the palette was more blue than I thought. I thought there'd be, even with the extras costumes, I thought there'd be more green. There was a lot of redheads.
Yeah.
What would the Featherington family look like? Get out the red-headed extras. And the flower girls, they were both redheads. So I feel like it was a Polin wedding. It looked very blue. It looked very yellow. Very sweet. But Pen is, of course, out by the lake too. She's been stood up by Eloise, so she's probably feeling a bit pissed off.
She looks super cute here. Her outfit is a cute little pink and yellow ensemble with nice little mesh gloves. It might be Stockholm Syndrome, but I've personally got very attached to the pink and yellow combo.
Does look
It's really coming into my life a lot. I keep pausing when I walk past the Bassenbergs and French fancies in Tesco. Or for the 47% of our listeners who are American, when I walk past the strawberry shortcake in Walmart.
Oh my god.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Penelope looks absolutely gorgeous in the shade. The pink is more pronounced now, which I think is interesting, especially considering what we'll see her wearing in the next scene.
Yeah, do you know the song Black and Yellow? Yeah, Pen's song should be Pink and Yellow, Pink and Yellow.
Get that in season 3. What's she up to, Veg?
So when we first see Pen, she looks over at Prudence quite concernedly. With Prudence is with Jack in the boat. But then Colin walks over and she immediately perks up. It's so cute to see her just light up. He does the same, like in the races in 202 when he sees her. I can't wait for them to actually figure their shit out and realise, oh, if I look at someone and it actively improves my mood, maybe that is meaningful.
We don't know if this is the first time they've spoken to each other since that scene at Aubrey Hall, but we're assuming not because there's no tension between them. So they must have had a nice little off-screen resolution. Perfect. Shame we didn't see it, but here we are. But where we despaired last week at Colin walking away from Pen and leaving her alone on the stairs, this week he makes up for it by striding over to her and continuing one of his favourite chat-up techniques he's carried over from last season, initiating conversation with Pen by asking after one of her cousins. Worry not, though, because this is the beginning of the turning point we mentioned last episode, where Colin's demeanour, his approach to Penelope, and the topic of conversation changes dramatically. In most of the first half of the season, we saw Pen approaching Colin, initiating their reactions. So when she faked being unaware at the races but actually initiated that, when she kept going up to him during like the You Do Not Count scene or on the staircase.
Yeah.
But this is really the start of that reverse, the turning point where Colin starts approaching Pen. Even in 207, where she walks into the room, he's in her house, he's up in her space. And it really seems that he has managed to leave the past behind, as he said, or at least he's trying his best. He's trying to shift his focus and is taking those steps forward into his future, which coincidentally just so happens to keep involving going and chatting with Pen. You know, some mysteries of the universe may never be solved.
So is this the start of chaos, Colin?
This is the
I think he's always been there.
of chaos.
I think he's always been bubbling under the surface. But I think this is when he really starts kicking into gear. You know, he's going to joyously build throughout the next few episodes until he finally out-chaoses himself in the season finale, chaosing too close to the sun and unknowingly crashing, burning, and taking us all down in the wreckage. So thanks for that, Colin.
Just as a side note, I think it's super amusing that Cousin Jack is throwing Prudence around because he doesn't particularly seem to like her, and we know he isn't happy about the match, even if he is willing to do his duty and marry her. So in my mind, I think he's just throwing her around to keep her at a distance because she's sitting like several feet away from him. I think he just maybe needed a break, honestly.
Thus begins what we affectionately refer to as, and creatively refer to as, the feeding the duck scene. It's very famous within the fandom, which is really hilarious considering how short their interaction actually is. We've been living off crumbs, people. Colin mentions that Prudence looks happy and he starts digging around after Jack, asking about his ruby mines in America, perfectly setting up one of my all-time favourite Colin lines we'll get to see later in the season. And Penelope tells Colin that the ruby mines are flourishing, so she hears. And Lady Whistledown hears a lot, does she not? And Pen, of course, has no interest in digging too far into Cousin Jack, I don't think, because I think she really just hopes that he will lift the burden off her shoulders, but that'll crash and burn too.
I love how Pen looks so supportive and also just happy that he's like asking about Jack, because she's related to Jack. It feels like she's like happy that Colin's like getting involved with her family.
Aww.
And not to be a negative Nancy, it feels like she finally feels like, oh, maybe things are going her way. Like, we've heard Series 3 is going to be the season she thought she was going to have. Well, that means that this season
Yes,
she thinks
that's true.
that, you know, oh, he's getting to know my family.
I hadn't considered this scene from that perspective before, that Penelope thinks that this relationship is still going somewhere and that this could be a sign that her dreams are coming true.
I've done a lot more with a lot less from boys, so
Yeah.
And that's what he adds to in 207 when he starts rattling on about how it'll be prosperous for both of their families and their relationship has gone on so long. That's such a good point, Veg. Oh,
fucking dickhead.
Pen. But Colin says he should introduce himself because he says, after all, everyone else is finding some purpose into their lives. Anthony is to be married, Benedict has his artistic pursuits, and, well, here I am feeding the ducks.
And you know what? This is an aside. My dog's favorite toys are puppets, like that you stick your hand in and like bites them. The first one we got from a friend was a penguin, so we would make little penguin-like quacky noises.
What noise does a penguin make?
We just do like quacking noise. We don't do that. But anyway, that's now her trigger noise. Now she has a shark puppet and other animals, but we have to do the quack, and then she knows that means a puppet is hiding. Anyway, animal noises aside. As Colin declares that he is just here feeding the ducks, we cut to a shot of the water. Yes, there are ducks in this shot if you squint, but the focal point of the shot appears to be a swan, which has caused many a Polin fan to lose their mind. Perhaps a cheeky little reference to the fact that Colin hasn't realized that there is a swan in his midst, and that Pen isn't the ugly duckling that she and others believe her to be. And fun fact, a female swan is called a Pen.
Yep.
If we needed more coincidences. I love this because fans of the ship, you'll know that we use ducks and swans emojis constantly, just like the pirates. We just keep throwing them out there, and this scene is why. And I just really like to think, because this has spawned so many theories, so many jokes, I really love the idea that they were at the end of the day filming and someone's like, shit, we need a shot of some ducks. Can you run back to the lake, grab some? And so this poor person like just ran and like set the camera up, and they were like, you know what, it's fine, it's got ducks in it. And now we've analysed, we're like, this was intentional. There are swans there for a reason. And someone's really quietly sat there like, just couldn't get the swans out of the shot. We just wanted to go home.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that Bridgerton is just like super intentional, as we know from the mallet scene, and we know from like a couple of other scenes as well. So I don't think that it was just like there are no ducks in the vicinity.
Yeah, so there was a swan handler who released a swan at the right moment. It swam across the screen. But no, I believe you.
Pen's reply always makes me laugh here because she says, I'm sure the duck's most grateful, and she really has no chill when it comes to making him happy. I mean, even I think you're scraping the barrel a bit with that.
Yeah, this is the Marina doesn't even like tomatoes of Series 2.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sure the ducks, come on, Pen. But just to do a quick purpose breakdown, because this is the beginning of Purpose Colin. And we'll really get into Colin's obsession with his purpose more next episode during a very famous scene. But it's going to be around for a while, so we might as well get well acquainted. Out with Greek Colin and in with Purpose Colin. He's changed his focus, he's looking to the future. That means that we're going to hear all about this. So Purpose Colin ties back to the books when we find out that charming Colin Bridgerton, known for his travelling, is actually entirely at a loose end within his life and unable to settle. And in the books, he thinks about the struggle that he has, and he says of his travels, which we've touched on with Colin's travels in the show, that every now and then he simply had to get away. There was no other way to describe it. Away from the Ton, who thought him a charming rogue and nothing else. Away from England, even away from his family, who loved him unconditionally but had no clue that what he really wanted deep down inside was something to do. Colin's lines in this episode, episode that he just said about Anthony's marriage and Benedict's artistic pursuits are actually very similar to a couple of lines from Romancing Mr. Bridgerton when he gets back from Cyprus, in which he thinks that Anthony would forever be remembered in his family trees as the 7th Viscount Bridgerton, and Benedict would live on through his paintings long after he left this earth, but Colin had nothing. And he said, poor little Colin, he said that he wanted a purpose and he wanted a legacy. He wanted, if not to know, then at least to hope that when he was gone, he'd be memorialised in some other manner other than in Lady Whistledown Society papers.
Damn.
Whoops-a-daisy pen. So he has this big insecurity about being the third born, and he really feels a restlessness within himself, and he's really not sure what to do with him. And this is what starts to build in the second half of season 2, as he's really tried to move on from everything that happened last season and figure out what is next. I mean, I totally get it, Colin. We've all been there.
Yeah, it's interesting, though, because we saw in the last episode that Benedict seems to envy Colin in the same way that Colin seems to envy him here in terms of finding purpose. Like, Benedict mentions, oh, you know, you've been travelling around, as if Colin's found the answer, which we know he hasn't.
And we'll touch on it maybe a little bit more next week, but that's quite reminiscent of a scene from, a very different tone, but a scene from Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, the journal scene, when Penelope gets really frustrated with Colin, because Colin says he has nothing. He voices this thought that he's had earlier in the book. He says that he has nothing and that his travels haven't meant much to him, and he's at loss. And Penelope gets kind of really pissed off at him because she's like, you've got everything, you're a man in this world, you've got intense privilege, which Colin does in both the book and the show. But it is the gulf between it looking like you have your shit together and it looking like you have everything at your fingertips, which he does, and really knowing what to do with it and really knowing how to find your way in the world, which I think is super relatable, even if we're all not Regency men with big inheritances. And I just want to stand up for him here, because Colin has been known to get a little bit of criticism for, you know, not having a job, losing his way, not really knowing what to do, going travelling, spending money and everything like that. But I think people are way too harsh on him, because we need to remember he's only 20 or 21 here, which is in Regency terms very, very young age for a man, and he's already eager to find something to do. He's actually trying actively to find a place and a role for himself. Whereas, you know, not to drag Ben down, but Ben is a lot older than Colin and is only just in the same series really taking the same steps into trying to find his place in the world. So as Penn reminds him, he has a good deal of time and plentiful opportunities to make his mark.
Penn is just so kind and encouraging here with Colin. I just adore them.
Yeah, and this might be controversial, but I actually like the snippet as much as I do the purpose scene, maybe. See, I just think it feels, like you said, Obs, like an excerpt from Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, with Colin doubting himself and Penn providing support. Obviously, in the purpose scene, there's a lot of other things, but in terms of that specific thing that he's sort of worrying about, I think it's such a good moment of connection between the two of them.
It's quite a small moment as well, like it's quite fleeting. Like the entire interaction's only a few seconds long, but it really shows how she really does uplift him all the time, and he really does get a lot of his support from her, and his self-esteem rests on her opinion of him as well, and that's all going to crumble next season, and he's going to be a bit more settled within himself. Are you cheering? He'll be a bit more settled within himself, but as soon as he realised that foundation of his life has gone and he can't just go running back for that recognition, and to have someone who really sees him and has the time for him as well, he is going to be crying. The conversation turns to Eloise, and Penn asks Colin where Eloise is. Remember, earlier on, Eloise said she was going to a lecture with Penn as a bit of an alibi, but she didn't loop Penn into the lie, meaning that Penn's been left completely off guard when Colin picks up on it. So Penn is left scrambling to cover for Eloise, but I think it's a bit too late because Colin has caught the lie. And we'll touch on this more in 207, but I do find it fascinating that Colin does know that Penn lies to him. She's done it to him before, like in 108 when she lied about dancing, and he doesn't seem to mind that much.
This might be why in 207 he says,
yeah, no, there are no secrets between the two of you.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to be with Lady Whistledown. I think his issues are going to be different because we have that sense of betrayal from Eloise. I don't think Colin is necessarily entitled to from Penn. I don't think she owes him her secret.
Also, next season, Penelope's are no longer friends. So who would Penelope be keeping secrets for? I think might be something that Colin is thinking of.
Oh, I also think that it'll probably change next season too. Like, Colin will probably be more upset as he begins to develop more romantic feelings towards her, because he does want to know everything about Penn, even the things that he doesn't know, or things that he's just now noticing.
And it's that thing where he'll really think he knows who she is, and then he's going to be blindsided.
Right.
Although, in Penn's defense, he does love the Whistledown in her. We've seen it time and time again.
Yeah.
Does this moment add weight, do you think, to Colin's suspicions that Elle is not only Lady Whistledown then, but that Penn knows about it too?
I think so.
I think so.
Because she covers.
The case is building. He's on the case. But sadly, before he can get too far into his investigations, Colin gets called away. He gives Penn a cute little bow and he skips away.
Kind of. It's just funny though. It's such a deep. They've had like a deep little convo, and then there's this Eloise thing, and then he just leaves without.
He bows first. I mean, he's a gentleman about it.
Skips
He's
off.
just like, okay, bye.
I suppose they can't hang around with each other for too long, otherwise.
Yeah.
They'll fall in love.
Yeah, God forbid they spend more than 3 seconds in each other's company. He's like, I've not asked you how you are, Pen, but you've just given me all the self-assurance, and you just bounced up my spirit for me. See you later. See you next week. Oh dear, Colin. But it's an oasis after the hot mess of last week's staircase scene, so we will happily take it. We'll happily feed those ducks with it because our Polin is back and all is well in our little world.
And like Antony, I must do my duty and inform our listeners, in case they are not aware, that Antony's wet shirt moment is likely inspired by a scene where Mr. Darcy decides to go for a swim in the 1995 Pride and Prejudice miniseries. And there's also a fun reference to that same scene in the 2008 miniseries Lost in Austin, which I highly recommend if you want to make sure you're up to date on your Regency wet shirt moments.
An incredibly important topic. Thank you, Letty. And of course, Pen and Colin both witness Antony's spectacle and both find it hilarious. Note that Pen is seen chatting with cousin Jack during that scene, which is more proof that she really does seem to genuinely get on with him, which is retrospectively quite sad.
Yeah.
But the next day, we find Pen in the Bridgerton entrance hallway waiting for Eloise. She's a little bit pissed off. She's a little bit antsy. I think she wants some answers, which only grows when Eloise completely brushes her off.
I just love this shot where the camera pans down on Pen as she's standing in the entryway of the Bridgerton house.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites. And Pen not only looks super adorable, but is in an almost fully pink ensemble now. Maybe this is a representation of her independence, but she looks gorgeous. Her bust is much more covered, sadly, but the cut of this dress resembles the one we see in the Heart Eye scene, but she's lovely regardless.
Elle runs down, looking surprised to see a friend there, and I love that Eloise has forgotten they went to go for a walk. Presumably they do something every single day without fail. She really is distracted. And Pen is taking note. She tries to fill her in on the lake shenanigans, but it's clear that Pen has an agenda, as she says, "Where were you?" with a little too much pointedness.
To get somewhat critical of Pen for a moment, I kind of hate the way she feigns amusement and lightheartedness when speaking with Eloise here. Previously, we've had some scenes where Pen appeared to be manipulating Eloise and pumping her for information, but she did it in a much more genuine way than she does here. I think Pen is so worried about Eloise poking around the printer shop that she's not enjoying the company of her friend as she did in those other scenes. It just really makes me uncomfortable. It's a reminder that their fallout is imminent.
And when Eloise leaves, Pen slips over to Eloise's maid and lies about Eloise's reticule, trying to get information about where Elle has been. And note the complete change in her voice. So when she was speaking to Eloise, she had a much lower, a more pointed voice, whereas here she goes really girlish, really high, really innocent as she speaks to Eloise's maid.
Hello, where is Sophie Beckett? Have you seen Sophie Beckett? I'm looking for Sophie Beckett. Hey, I'm looking for Sophie Beckett. Now, where is Sophie Beckett, bro? Don't you know?
Lucky, what are we doing? We're in a tent. The walls are stripy. You're wearing a clown nose. I think I've just seen a trapeze eyes flying past us in the distance. What the hell is going on?
So forget Penelope. This is now What a Barbify, a Benefy podcast. Now, in this scene, Pen has a little interaction with Eloise's maid. This is not the first time she appears in this episode, but I feel like I've now gathered enough evidence to lay out some suspicions regarding this character.
Now, Lecky, are you referring to owl clowning? Is this why you dragged me away from the others?
Yes.
Now, dear listeners, as we say, forget Pen, we don't care. Push her aside. We have a theory we'd like to share with the class.
We are both likely completely wrong, but this actress and this role sets off alarm bells in my mind, and Obs and I both have a minor theory that she could be Sophie.
So Lecky and I have been thinking for a while that this particular actress in this particular role has always stood out to us. The actress who portrays Eloise's maid here is called Sarah Junior, and we have some suspicions.
Since we're in the circus tent, please allow us to clown. So here's what we find interesting about this character. So there is this scene earlier in the episode where she accompanies Eloise to go see Theo, and the focus that she receives in this scene is just so weird to me because it should be an Eloise scene. It's about Eloise going to see Theo, but the camera focuses on her a weird amount, and she receives a weird amount of dialogue in this scene. Eloise seems to be reading, but Eloise's maid, we're kind of watching the scene through her eyes.
Yes, Yeah.
And she offers some interesting dialogue. She says that this doesn't look like a place for shopping to me. Now, I feel like this is a very weird line for such a minor character and for a maid to boot to say.
Yeah, because usually maids don't tend to offer their opinions, do they really? That's not really their role within the storytelling necessarily, or within their actual place within the society. Because we have seen quite a few maids. Obviously, Rose had quite a big storyline in season 1. But in terms of the regular Bridgerton maids who participate in scenes, it's usually quite fleeting, or it's very brief comment.
Or they're delivering information.
But like here, she gives, like you say, she gives an opinion, and it's kind of a negative opinion as well. It's almost going against Eloise a little bit.
Yeah. So a maid shouldn't be speaking up like this about what is and isn't safe for Eloise. And then the camera, it just kind of lingers on her in this very interesting way as they're making their way through the crowd. Eloise walks off, but the camera stays on this actress, and she's in the center of the frame. And she just looks, I got like main character vibes. It was just a very weird little shot to me.
Very intentional.
Yes. And also, I feel like this entire scene wasn't really needed. All we needed to see from the scene was her character reacting to Eloise seeing Theo. She did not need to receive dialogue to be able to have that conversation that she does with Penelope in this scene that we're talking about outside of the circus tent, that, you know, a woman shouldn't be going to Bloomsbury alone, or that she saw Eloise there. There didn't need to be any dialogue. In this scene, she also offers more opinions, which is odd. She says, I warned her the streets of Bloomsbury aren't fit for a lady. And it just seems odd that a maid would make such a statement.
Yeah, because obviously Penelope needs to learn information here, but she could have done that in a very straightforward way. Instead of this, there's almost characterization there.
Yeah, this particular line almost speaks to a backstory, is what we've discussed. That, like,
do you see where we're going with this, listeners? Do you see where we're going?
The streets of Bloomsbury aren't fit for a lady. Like, what is she saying there? Like, what does she know about what it means to be a lady? What does that speak of regarding her past? And as we know, that Sophie has a very interesting past. She's the bastard daughter of an earl. She knows what it means to be a lady and also to be removed from that world. So that kind of line of dialogue fits in with that kind of backstory. And then also, I would just like to call attention to, in the earlier scene with Eloise, she wears this very interesting purple cloak. It's like a little capelet. And we don't really see, please correct me, listeners, if I'm wrong, if you've seen one before, but I don't think we've seen any other maid wear a cloak like this. Now, this could be because she's a lady's maid, but it almost feels like an interesting choice they made to make her seem different from the other maids and just stick out just a little bit more on camera.
Very subtly, but just enough.
Yeah.
She sometimes wears it inside the house as well, doesn't she?
Yes.
So it's not just when she's out here where maybe she would wear a capelet. She wears it amongst other maids.
Yes.
When she's indoors, why is she wearing it?
Yes, we will talk about this during our next episode. But just to keep on the spiraling train, this is the only photo of a maid that also appears on Sophie Canale's Instagram page. She's the costume designer for season 2. This was the only maid that she photographed and the only maid costume that I remember, except for, I believe, the housekeeper, Mrs. Wilson. And then we just feel like this actress has, like, presence about her. I don't know, there's just something about her that sticks out to me. And like I said, we could be completely wrong, but there's something here.
We've been talking about this for a very long time, and I think where this entire theory came from is we were just both struck by her presence on screen as a character in a way that I don't think we've been struck by a maid before. It could be possible that she's just a very good actress.
There's good casting people on the show, as we know.
Exactly. But the actress brings this sort of quiet strength to the character, which has always stuck out to both of us as something that we see within Sophie.
Yes. I just love the idea of them slipping in casting like this under our noses and her kind of hiding in plain sight in like 2 seasons before the whole Benefi story potentially unravels. And just to continue this, she is returning in season 3, and it says she has a recurring role according to her spotlight. And this is interesting to me because she still only has the name Eloise's maid.
Yeah.
If you think about the other significant maids who have had speaking roles, like Rose from season 1, they had a name. And now we have this actress who's returning for a second season. I don't understand. It just seems weird. Why haven't they named this maid who has a speaking role, who has opinions? Also, earlier in season 2, in episode 1, Antony declares that they're hiring a new lady's maid for Eloise, so it almost seemed like set up for Fenn's season. I feel like Antony saying that and the arrival of this actress in this role and this character may be setting up Sophie's storyline under everybody's noses.
Because doesn't Antony also say that they need to make sure that the lady's maid is even more strong-willed than the last, which just screams Sophie to me.
Yeah, it does. And also, according to this actress's spotlight, she can speak French. We know Sophie can speak French.
A helpful skill to have, perhaps.
I think that's all the evidence we have at this point.
Add to Biscuit Watch Fife watch, Modeste watch. We've got Sophie watch on the card.
Also, keep an eye out for her if the trailers are ever released. I would be interested to see if she's in any shots with Benedict or anybody else who is significant in season 3.
So just to clarify, it's not that we necessarily believe that she definitely is Sophie.
It's a crackpot theory. We've ran with it.
We believe that if Sophie is in the season already, if she has been dropped in the season already,
she would be a good choice.
Go back, have a rewatch. Please let us know what you think. This is our little clowning space, so come and join us in the tent.
Yeah.
But I think the others might be wondering where we are.
Where we've gone. Yeah.
Should we take them back some candy floss and head back to the episode?
I can't seem
I'm really
to find
looking for Sophie Beckett
anywhere.
Can you tell me
where
where
has
she is?
Sophie Beckett gone? I don't even really know who she is, but I'm looking for her.
And as the maid leaves, Pen turns and looks a little bit pissed off and a little bit troubled, and all I'll say is, watch your back, Elle.
And for those who were wondering how Cake Watch is faring, we go over to the Featherington house where poor Mr. Brooks attempts to coerce Portia into serving him cake by saying, "No cake then," but Portia curtly dismisses him by saying another time. She has no interest in entertaining him, she has bigger problems to worry about, and judging by the state of their finances, and this just makes me laugh, but it's also possible that they again have nothing to serve guests or themselves apart from potatoes. Poor Mr. Brooks and poor Pen.
That's why the second that Colin marries Pen, he'll be like, I'll look after your family. Because if he hears estate is in such bad state of disrepair that they can't afford cake, the debts will be paid in an instant.
Yeah. And we again return to the Featherington house later that night, where the Featherington ladies are sitting by a fire, and Portia seems to be mourning the fact that she doesn't have any invitations to toss into the fire. Prudence's engagement has negatively impacted the family's social standing, and they're on the brink of financial catastrophe yet again.
And Penelope is not happy about the drama, as she's just snapped at them. And Penelope's already had enough to deal with Elle today, and I think she's less than impressed to find that family are causing her even more trouble yet again. The girl just wants to read a book in peace.
Although it's a bit difficult to judge from the lighting, Pen appears to be in a new pink and yellow dress, and it looks super cute. I wish we'd seen more of this one.
Yeah, it's quite hard to see it in the lighting, but it does look like the style of it, the pattern does match her family quite a lot, and she does sort of do that. She matches her family, especially Portia, who in this scene has got a pink dress with a similar floral pattern, and this has happened before in lots of events they'll go to, and we know that's like a function of Portia's control, and she does differ sometimes. And this costume, hair and makeup teams, they've spoken about an effort in season 2 to make Pen diverge more from her family to a certain extent, but I just am really curious to see how that will present itself in Pen's outfits in series 3 to show real independence. She still matches them in these casual scenes. Say that she's hanging out in their drawing room. Is she going to be in a completely different dress to them even then? I can't wait to see.
That's a good point, because we're going to see a lot in the next few episodes how she really starts to change in terms of the cuts of her dress, the way her hair is. She starts to break out of Portia's control even more. And then when we saw, spoilers, the filming leaks from episode 1 in Bath, it's completely different. Like, people were like, are they filming a flashback to a previous season? Because her hair and styling was so completely different to how it had been at the end of season 2. It was this major regression that we were seeing.
Right.
Where her hair is incredibly tightly curled. It's backed poodly. She's wearing a venomously green dress that she wore in season 1. The whole styling is completely at odds with what we're starting to see here and what we see at the end of the season. And I think this is really tying into the control issue. We know from the synopsis that one of the reasons Pen wants to get married is because she wants to break out of her family finally. So it seems that whatever's happened in the off season from season 2, beyond losing Eloise and Polin, Pen has had to go back under Portia's control in the off season. And you'll see that visually in her appearance. And from Tudum, we see that by episode 2, she looks completely different. She's window pen, and she's in her house there. So there must be a reason that she's able to get away with it. And is she finally going to stand up to her mum and say straight out, I don't care what you're doing. I'm doing this now.
Or maybe Portia is distracted because Prudence has a new suitor, Mr. Dankworth.
I think it would be maybe better if Pen did turn around, though, and was like,
it would,
no, your plan hasn't worked for the past 2 years. If she's really been pushed to that extent where she's completely done with the whole thing, maybe she should just turn around and be like, I don't really give a fuck what you think, what your opinions are. She's got a new lady's maid who's going to be on her side with her hairstyling and such.
It'll be interesting to see Portia and Pen going toe-to-toe in season 3 and see how that relationship develops, because I think that is going to be a significant part of season 3 as well.
Definitely. You just mentioned here that, you know, she had been wearing a lot of pink earlier on in the episode, and that represents, you know, independence, her feeling confident in her work, sort of her unburdened self thanks to Jack taking responsibility for the family. But now that things are at risk with both Eloise and Lady Whistledown, and now that she's found out the family is collapsing yet again, her wings are being clipped and she's dragged back into this drama in the Featherington living room. And that happens via a ton of her family's yellow fabric. So she's not best pleased, and she points out they should be grateful they still have a cook and a lady's maid each.
Pen clearly hasn't forgotten the stress of Varley cooking endless potatoes, which they could be eating now, I'm just saying.
They're back to potatoes. And since Pen clearly doesn't have enough to deal with, it's made far worse when she heads to the printers and spies on Eloise and Theo. Was she going to deliver an issue and then couldn't because Elle was there, or did she follow Eloise directly? I assume it's the latter, because what we now know about Jen and Pen's operation, they've got an entirely different process going on. I think that Penelope took matters into her own hands, started following her best friend. Boy, does she not look happy to see what's going on.
Yeah, I also think she followed Elle.
Yeah.
As we mentioned in our season 1 rewatch, I also believe this pink capelet that Penelope wears in this scene was originally worn by Marina, coincidentally while also visiting a bad part of town.
Yeah, it's not her usual Bridgerton blue sneaky cape here. It's like a peach, well, as you say, it's the peachy one before, but maybe it is because she's going against the Bridgertons here. She's not wearing her typical blue.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
I like the idea that she's going against Eloise in this scene, and therefore turning against the colour that she normally finds comfort in, because Eloise is causing her stress with her work. And that's kind of where the episode ends for Pen and Colin. Colin's off, probably still eating biscuits, but Penelope's in a bit of a tough spot that's only going to grow bigger for her. And it doesn't bode well for Pen and Eloise. This is really a point where Eloise isn't going to realise that this gap is widening between them, but it is, and Pen is going to make some decisions about Eloise's life that I don't know are going to go down too well. To say that I thought this was a super light-hearted, really laid-back episode, I forgot that I ended up on quite a dark note. So to cheer us up and to lift our spirits ever so slightly, Lecky, do you have a whistle up for the episode?
If this wasn't the Polin podcast, if this was the What a Bane of My Existence, a Cantony podcast, I'd include another Antony moment here. I just love how his one leg sticks straight up in the air after he falls into the water. But my whistle up for this week is maybe seeing snarky Colin snacking while surrounded by the Bridgerton family chaos.
Yeah, he's feeling a little bit more of himself. He's not as down and miserable. He's getting there. Speaking of a dark and depressing episode, do you have a whistle down for us?
So yes, this episode starts to get really depressing and dramatic in terms of the main plot line, which just makes me wonder what awful things are in store for Polin in season 3 for episode 5 and beyond. And we believe the mirror scene occurs around episode 5 or so, or perhaps episode 6.
Earlier than we thought.
Yeah, so the mirror scene may be surrounded by a lot of drama. So I was just thinking maybe the piece of furniture they break is the mirror, and Polin end up with 7 years of bad luck.
That would just be the happy ending that this fandom would be in for, wouldn't it?
So, Bo ratings, we'll start with Lovey Ovs.
It's not a very Polin episode.
No, it's not.
Colin's having a nice time. He's getting there, but it takes such a turn with Penelope at the end as well. I'm going to give this, what did I give last? I gave last week's a 7, didn't I?
Yeah.
It can't be worse than that.
Yeah.
I'll give this a 6. No, the feeding the ducks is cute. I'll give them a 5.
I agree, I'm a 5.
That's my rating too.
Exactly. I was going to give 5. Beans, you were 5 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 all
5
around.
for episode 5? Are we all in agreement?
We're all in agreement.
Hallelujah. Beautiful. Well, on that, sorry, I think I just got a bit dragged down into the Penelope's drama and just forgot that we weren't there for that. No, they had a nice time feeding the ducks. We got endless duck jokes out of it, which is all we care about in the fandom. But are you ready for next week, everyone? This episode has been a nice little diversion, but it's really all about next week because it's purpose time and there's a wedding and everything like that. But it's purpose time, baby. This is my heart eyes. I cannot wait for next week. It's going to be so much fun.
This is the start of something new. It feels so right to be here with you. Oh,
Looking in your eyes. I'm feeling my heart, feeling my heart.
The start of something
I never knew that it could happen till it happened to me. Beautiful.
Goodness.
In the meantime, as we await finding our purpose, where can everyone find us, Lecky?
You can find us at What a Barb Pod on Instagram and TikTok.
And we are also over on reddit.com/r/Polin Bridgerton.
I can't make a judgment on how good that was. Was that all right?
It was all right. It was all right.
That was not, on the other hand.
Perfect.
Beans, can you do us the honors? And I'm not going to do that in an accent. No, Beans, do us the honors and see us out.
Das violin. Do 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 do. Do 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 do.